Have you ever been there? Facing a big decision, knowing the logical facts just weren't, well, quite enough. That you needed something more, maybe a deeper sense of what's right.
Hmm.
Or perhaps you've watched leaders, in those high stakes moments really struggle to do the right thing even when all the data seems to be there. It's a pretty common challenge, isn't it?
It really is.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into ethical and purposeful leadership. Our mission really is to sift through a fascinating stack of articles, some cutting-edge research, and real-world insights.
Yeah.
We want to give you a clear shortcut, sort of, to understanding how exceptional leaders manage to blend objective data with that subjective inner wisdom.
That alchemy you mentioned.
Exactly. How they navigate complex challenges and how they drive meaningful, positive change for people and the planet. So get ready to be truly well-informed, hopefully with some surprising facts and practical takeaways you can use.
And this isn't just theory, right? The spotlight on ethics in business, in politics, it's never been brighter.
No, it hasn't.
What's really compelling now is that moral leadership isn't just about, avoiding scandals anymore.
Right. Damage control.
It's about actively creating an environment where organizations, teams, individuals, they don't just survive, they genuinely thrive. Especially in this global, fast-changing world we're in. It's becoming, frankly, non-negotiable for any kind of sustainable success.
Okay, let's unpack this straight away then. Starting with this powerful idea that truly purposeful leadership, well, it really demands blending objective facts with subjective inner wisdom. It's this kind of alchemy, like you said, that turns good intentions into real impact. The material we looked at introduces something called, and it sounds a bit academic, biotransformation theory in practice.
Right, sounds like a mouthful.
It does. But essentially, it's about recognizing that rigorous science gives us what we can see and measure objectively.
Sure, the hard data.
But our deepest intuitions, our insights, they're often the only reliable guides when it comes to matters of conscience. It's like developing a personal method to consciously bring the head and the heart together in your leadership.
Exactly. And it's not just philosophical talk. There's some pretty compelling evidence backing this up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, one study highlights corporate traders, people dealing with hard numbers,
Right.
right?
The high pressure.
The ones who consciously use both data and their intuition together consistently get far better returns than those who just rely on one or the other.
Wow. Okay. So it validates this blend in a very tangible way.
It really does. And a striking point the research makes is how this plays out in real time, especially when leaders face those tough, unprecedented decisions. The ones where history doesn't quite offer a map.
Yeah, the playbook runs out.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It reminds me of what the diplomat Henry Kissinger famously said. He put it like this: "The dilemma of the statesman is that he can never be certain about the probable course of events. In reaching a decision, she must inevitably act on the basis of intuition that is inherently unprovable. If he insists on certainty, she runs the danger of becoming a prisoner of events."
That really hits home, doesn't it? It means we can't always just lean on, say, established moral principles from the past for those truly alive moments, situations that feel completely new.
Right, uncharted territory.
So what does this actually mean for us as leaders? How do we navigate that? It points towards what's called a third way of creative tension.
Okay.
This means, practically, carving out regular time for introspection, maybe some soul-searching, especially when you get that interoceptive emotional intuition, that deep gut feeling, your body literally telling you something isn't quite right, that you're maybe off purpose or out of integrity.
It's like a powerful biofeedback for your integrity, isn't it? A built-in compass.
Totally.
And to cultivate this, the research suggests these transformational reconnection practices. Now, these don't have to be, week-long silent retreats or anything.
Right. Not necessarily grand gestures.
No. It could be dedicated journaling, structured walks in nature where you reflect, maybe specific breathing exercises.
Yeah.
Anything designed to quiet that internal stress, that chatter, and allow what's termed embodied wisdom to surface. That deeper intelligence your whole being holds, not just your logical brain.
So the goal here is blending intuition with instinct, insight with intelligence, making decisions that are both ethical and effective, truly on purpose.
Yeah.
So this isn't about throwing data out the window.
Not at all. It's augmenting it.
Right. So sometimes this might mean, okay, let's pause this big decision until my intuition feels clear.
Could be.
But maybe more often, it's about stepping forward boldly with, say, a little data plus a deeply felt intuition. But that takes practice, right? Refining those intuitive skills, learning how to test them, making sure they're genuine wisdom and not
Not just
just
noise or fear or wishful thinking.
okay. Yeah.
You have to learn to discern. And if we zoom out, connect this to the bigger picture, this isn't just about isolated decisions. It's really about how we lead our entire lives, our organizations.
How so?
Well, it involves actively trying to avoid situations that chip away at your integrity, especially things that might trigger, say, addictive patterns if that's a vulnerability.
Setting boundaries.
Strong boundaries, yeah. And also learning to metabolize failures or crushed dreams, not seeing them as dead ends, but as kind of raw material for discovering deeper truths about your unique purpose.
Reframing setbacks.
Exactly. And many people find through these kinds of reconnection practices, they tap into a sense of connective consciousness, this profound feeling that in some way we are all one. And that, in turn, can unlock this inner source of love, which is what really animates genuine purpose.
And this shift takes leadership beyond just, say, maximizing profit.
Absolutely. It means rooting what you do, whether it's a project or a whole company, in a purpose beyond profit, a genuine drive to transform human suffering or planetary devastation.
Not just because it looks good or there's a business case.
Not primarily, but because it's simply what the world needs. This deep purpose then becomes the main lens for building ethical, even regenerative business models.
Regenerative meaning.
Meaning they actually restore and revitalize rather than just sustain or deplete. It grounds leaders in real values, real meaning. It creates teams where people feel they're part of something significant. And ultimately, it generates what the research calls regenerative outcomes.
This sounds incredible, almost like a leadership superpower. But I guess every power has its demands, right?
For sure.
The research talks about a purpose dividend, a career with deep meaning, fulfillment, resilience, attracting great people.
All true. The upside is huge.
But it also stresses there's a purpose premium that has to be paid. What exactly does that demand from a leader?
Well, it's about being willing to risk the comfort, the safety net of just following societal rules or expectations when your purpose calls for something different.
Going against the grain sometimes.
Definitely. It's about genuinely caring about people and the planet, not just putting it in the mission statement. At its core, purpose in this context is described as love in action, an unstoppable force of connection and compassion.
Love in action.
Yeah. And here's the kicker, the real test. If that purpose isn't actually demanding that you change your actions or maybe give up certain conveniences, the research warns it is just talk or just marketing.
Oof, that's direct.
It is. For a corporate leader, that might mean pushing hard for sustainable supply chains, even if they're more expensive initially, or maybe divesting from partnerships that don't align ethically, even if it hits the short-term bottom line. It's putting genuine care over convenience or immediate financial gain.
That's a really powerful challenge to, authenticity. Okay, so moving from that deep sense of purpose to maybe the bedrock of ethical behavior, let's lay some groundwork with Ethics 101.
Good idea. The fundamentals.
One key clarification that really stood out in the material is that ethics is not a science.
Right. That's crucial.
It doesn't have a universal body of knowledge or some agreed-upon methodology like, say, physics does. Instead, its fundamental data points are often feelings and emotions.
Which makes ethical judgments inherently subjective, doesn't it?
Exactly. And they can vary hugely across cultures, communities, even individuals. That's precisely why most businesses today set up an ethics code.
Yeah, those principles, values, standards, the rules of the road for the organization.
Right. Guiding decisions, behaviors, and there's that common phrase, you hear it all the time, good ethics is good business.
Often repeated.
And it leads to valuable things like self-regulation within the company, stronger team ethics, maybe better products and services, and hopefully happier clients.
Which raises the obvious question, though. If good ethics is good business, why do we still see so many ethical violations? Why are ethical dilemmas so common?
Yeah, what gives?
The studies we looked at point to several key reasons. First, they're sometimes misinterpreting data, maybe intentionally, maybe not often for personal benefit, or just to hit a target.
Pressure cooker situations?
Exactly. Second, sometimes your personal values might genuinely clash with the stated business ethics. That's a tough spot. Third, disrespect between coworkers, maybe stemming from different cultural beliefs or biases, can definitely create ethical friction.
Undermining teamwork.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And fourth, sometimes it's just straightforward unprofessional behavior that directly violates the company's code of conduct.
Right.
And what makes this even trickier today is globalization. It just adds layers of complexity. Leaders constantly have to work to minimize ethical conflicts that pop up simply because of cultural differences. It's a very delicate, ongoing balancing act.
It sounds like a lot to juggle, and anyone who's led through a tough situation knows that feeling, being pulled in different moral directions.
Oh, yeah.
Which brings us to a crucial point. Even with the best intentions, a strong ethical compass, leadership itself is just incredibly hard sometimes.
No doubt about it.
The research points out several specific challenges just for transformational leadership. For example, there's a real potential for burnout,
Big one.
both for the leader and the team, because the goals are often ambitious. There's constant pressure to innovate. We've all seen that, right? Pushing so hard the engine starts to sputter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And another challenge is the risk of dependency on the leader. Their charisma, their vision. It's powerful, but sometimes followers can become too reliant.
Stifling their own growth.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then there's just plain resistance to change. Not everyone adapts easily to a new direction, and leaders need really effective ways to manage that pushback.
Communication is key there.
Hugely. And finally, there's the danger of unrealistic expectations. Setting targets that are just impossible can actually kill motivation, even if you meant well.
Demoralizing.
Exactly. And beyond those, specific studies, like one by Rode back in 2006, they pinpoint 3 core practical challenges of just day-to-day moral leadership: dealing with limited time, navigating ambivalence, yours and others, and managing the leader's own sense of self under pressure. It demands constant vigilance.
Wow. And as if that wasn't enough, moral leaders also face these practical hurdles like resisting personal gain, avoiding the temptation of tyranny or unfairness, managing justice within the team or organization, pursuing a clear moral mandate, trying desperately to avoid mission failure, minimizing any collateral damage from tough decisions, and just fundamentally trying to consistently do good.
You need a process, not just gut feel all the time.
Exactly. So the framework has 5 basic steps. First, recognize an ethical issue. Sometimes just seeing it clearly is the hardest part, right?
Definitely. Spotting the dilemma.
Second, get the facts. Gather all the relevant information you can as objectively as possible.
Avoid jumping to conclusions.
Third, evaluate alternative options. Think through different courses of action and what their impacts might be on everyone involved.
Considering stakeholders.
Fourth, make a decision and test it. Kind of mentally walk through the implications. How would this play out?
Pressure testing it.
Yeah. And finally, fifth, reflect on the outcome. Learn from the experience, whether it went well or, presented new challenges. As you go through this, the advice is, remember to consider not just your personal values, but also your organization's code, professional ethics, the whole picture.
That's a solid framework.
Yeah.
And it's supported by some core principles and strategies that leaders really need to embed in how they operate.
Okay, like what?
Key principles include things like integrity, just acting with honesty; accountability, taking responsibility; fairness, balancing different interests; empathy, genuinely trying to understand others' perspectives; and transparency, being open about decisions.
They'll sound foundational.
They are. And to put them into practice, the material suggests several strategies. Always lead by example, because what you do speaks volumes.
Actions louder than words?
Absolutely. Encourage open dialogue. Create a space where people feel safe actually discussing ethical dilemmas without fear.
Psychological safety.
Crucial. Implement ethical training regularly for everyone, not just a one-off onboarding thing. And establish clear policies, give people clear guidelines and guardrails.
Makes sense. And specifically for organizations trying to close that leadership gap we talked about earlier, any actionable steps there?
Yes, definitely. Organizations need to prioritize values in leadership development programs, really embed ethics, empathy, fairness as core competencies right from the start.
Build it in.
Build it in. Also, actively celebrate and promote ethical behaviors. Recognize and reward leaders who demonstrate strong moral principles. Make it visible that this is valued.
Reinforce the positive.
Exactly. And critically, establish systems to monitor progress. Regularly assess leadership behaviors to see if they're actually aligning with the organization's values and track whether that gap is closing. You have to measure it.
Right. What gets measured gets managed. Okay, so looking even broader now, beyond just our teams or companies, the idea of global moral leadership came up too.
Yeah, influence that goes beyond just one country's borders.
The insights point to some powerful historical examples, like Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King Jr., people who didn't just lead their own nations but had this incredible global impact. What was it about their moral leadership that resonated so widely?
Well, they shared some distinct characteristics according to the analysis.
Yeah.
They had this deep personal commitment to a set of values that really transcended their own national context.
Universal value.
Universal values, yeah. They had a crystal clear vision of a moral imperative, some value that wasn't being practiced but desperately needed to be. They showed immense courage and conviction in promoting that value, often facing incredible opposition.
Unwavering commitment.
Truly. And, critically, they possess amazing communication skills to share their vision effectively, inspiring millions across the globe. They were genuine catalysts for moral transformation on a world stage.
What a journey we've taken today. It's been quite the deep dive. We started by exploring that alchemy of purposeful leadership.
Blending facts and intuition.
Right, how that helps us navigate those tricky, unprecedented alive moments. Then we unpacked transformational purpose as love in action, this genuine force for good that really demands change, demands tough choices,
Not just talk.
not just talk. We also confronted the real challenges of moral leadership, acknowledging that even with the best intentions, it's a demanding, complex path.
It definitely is.
And crucially, we looked squarely at that alarming, persistent shortage of ethical leaders, but also discussed clear, actionable frameworks and strategies to help bridge that very real gap.
Yeah, this deep dive really hammers home that ethical and purposeful leadership isn't just, a nice to have or some moral obligation you check off a list.
No, it feels more fundamental.
It is. It's really a strategic imperative for individuals, for teams, for organizations. It directly builds trust, credibility, and ultimately long-term sustainable success.
So given the clear demand for moral leadership in our world today and that alarming shortage we talked about, maybe the final thought for you listening is this. What single intentional step will you take this week to consciously cultivate your own ethical compass, moving beyond just compliance, beyond just following the rules, towards genuine purpose-driven action right there in your own sphere of influence?